Chapter 8, 28,000 galleons. I know, but 28,000 galleons. Yes, Sirius, I know. The furniture alone is worth that much. That was an original Van Eyck charmed boudoir in perfect condition. That's probably 15 large on its own. And even in that shape, the mage cloak was still worth Sirius. What? We are knowingly taking less than half of market price. How else am I supposed to look at it? Sirius, Harry said, making sure he had his attention. We just made 28,000 galleons. Sirius frowned. With Felix, we may not get as much as we could elsewhere, but we can trust him. He can spread these things around to make them untraceable. He offered to let us obliviate him. He only said that because he can break memory charms. It's symbolic. He gave us an unbreakable vow to never reveal anything about us. This wasn't just stuff when we had it, it was evidence. And Sirius, I'll repeat it once more, a little louder. We are now 28,000 galleons richer than we were yesterday afternoon. True. Sirius was fighting a smile. It's a good thing, Harry said with a nod. We may get less money, but we get more peace of mind. I know, Sirius grumbled, scuffing his shoes. It's just, you know what might make you feel better, Harry interrupted. Why don't we go spend a few thousand galleons? Okay, Sirius shouted excitedly. Wait, are we spending our own money or someone else's? Harry had to think about the question. I suppose we are spending our own money. But, and this is an important but at least we didn't earn it through an honest day's work like a sucker. Sirius nodded slowly. I can live with that. I'm not going to wear it, Sirius indignantly argued. And you need to slow down before we go broke. Again. Sirius, Harry sighed. What have I bought? Have you even been paying attention? You spent 3,000 galleons just to get a couple of trunks impenetrably charmed to us. Harry nodded, urging for Sirius to continue. You spent 1,200 galleons on just anchor stones, including some that cost over 100 galleons for one hunk of rock. Yup, a pair of chameleon cloaks for each of us. I'll admit they're nice, but at 400 galleons each, I don't think we both need an extra cloak that'll just collect dust in the back of our closets. You do understand that with the chameleon cloak, we don't have to buy any muggle outfits. Sirius ignored him. And now you just spent 1,700 galleons on a couple of necklaces. Harry nodded. I like to think of it as we spent not just me, but yeah, they're supposed to be for a husband and wife, Sirius bemoaned. And they're ugly, Harry frowned. Okay, I'll admit they're a bit gaudy. A bit, Sirius questioned, unconsciously raising his voice. Harry, inch-thick gold chain is more than a bit gaudy. It's not that thick, Harry grumbled. And you're a wizard, aren't you? Sirius shook his head. It's the principle. You don't bang fat chicks just because they can cast a glamour. Do you even know what these necklaces are? Harry said, gripping a hold of the thick chain around his neck. Yeah, Sirius grimaced. They're an old traditional wedding gift used for the consummation of arranged marriages. I suppose that's one use. But do you know what they do? Sirius shook his head. They allow a shared mental connection between the two people wearing them. It's for the purpose of creating a feedback loop of pleasure to ease the tension of the wedding night. Listen, I don't know what anyone told you about a godfather's duties, but please don't finish that thought, Harry said with a wince. The point is that it opens a mental connection between us. They allow us to communicate completely silently across distances. Think like the magical mirrors, but without anyone ever knowing we're talking. Sirius thought about it. That would have been great for pranking. And tests. Exactly. So instead of carrying a mirror like a Malfoy, we're going to wear jewelry that even a blind goblin would find hideous. Everything I've bought for us is going to make our new hobby easier. That's more than you can say. Why did you buy a photo development kit anyway? Sirius snickered to himself. I might have come across a wizarding camera last night. Harry looked at him expectantly. And I want to develop the pictures. Harry frowned. You're that curious what pictures are on it? Well, I know one picture that's on it. Harry began to put two and two together. And of course you took a picture of your privates and can't exactly drop those off at the Wizmart photo department. Sirius shook his head, inordinately proud of himself. It's not a picture of my boys, but good ID. I hope you didn't take any pictures that are going to be later described as the prosecution's exhibit. Not exactly, Sirius mysteriously answered. Harry just looked at his godfather, not wanting to indulge him at the moment. Sirius was waiting. Aren't you going to ask? Why should I when you're about to tell me anyway? Sirius couldn't hold it and joyfully explained, fine. Don't get all pillock. like on me. So you know I grabbed all their toiletries, right? Harry frowned. I assumed you were just too lazy to buy your own shampoo and toothpaste. Sirius shook his head. I actually didn't clear out the entire bathroom. Sirius paused and couldn't have stopped smiling if he wanted to. I left behind the Baron's toothbrush. Harry closed his eyes. Oh, Merlin, Sirius, I've heard rumors about things like this. Now Sirius continued, ignoring Harry. I knew you'd throw a hissy fit if I sent them a picture of my bum, because then they'd know I'm a wizard, white, and have an adorable ass. Harry thought hissy, if it wasn't the term he would have used, but nodded silently. Then I just happened to walk past a perfectly good, unconscious house elf, and I just happened to be carrying a wizarding camera, and I just happened to have the good Baron's toothbrush. Sirius shrugged helplessly. So I did what any wizard would have done. Harry was tempted to debate just what any wizard would have done, but settled for silently pitying the poor elf. It was like fate herself was slapping her knee, pointing and begging, "Do it again, do it again." Harry felt slightly ashamed that he was looking forward to the picture. "Let's go get the floor connected." "Great," Sirius mockingly agreed. "We should throw more money away, this time at the government." He shook his head, grumbling. "Why can't the ministry close on Sundays like the whole Muggle world does?" "Oh!" the little man behind the counter whined, rubbing his arm. "Did you just throw a sickle at me?" Sirius shook his head, trying to fight a chuckle, partly because it was horribly cheesy that Harry took Sirius's words literally and just physically threw money at the government, and partly because Sirius wished he had thought of it first. Could be worse. He could have thrown a sickle at you. The stocky wizard was confused. "What?" "Good afternoon," Harry greeted, paying no attention to the coin he had just thrown. "We would like to get our ancestral home reconnected to the floor system." "A reconnection? What's the address? Number 12, Grimmauld Place?" The short man had pulled out a thick ledger and was flipping through it. "That's London." "Yup," Harry said, while entertaining himself by using his magical arms to nudge Sirius's hair. Sirius kept swatting behind his head, thinking a bug was landing in his hair. "Ah-ha! Number 12, Grimmauld Place, the noble and most ancient house of Black." "We prefer ancientest," Harry corrected. "Excuse me?" the man asked in confusion. Harry maintained his deadpan expression. "Most ancient is a Muggle phrase. We're the noble and ancientest house of Black. I'm Lord Black," Sirius introduced with a nod. "My associate, Lord Black, never finished his proper schooling, and you know how dropouts are, so he overcompensates and tries to correct people for no real reason." The man had stopped flipping through the ledger and looked up at the two men, completely flummoxed on how to respond. He just looked back down and went back to his search. "Lord Black and Lord Black," the man greeted while retrieving all the paperwork on number 12 Grimmauld Place. "I've heard about you two. I'm Greg Olson." He was looking through the file and snuck a glance up at the two Lord Blacks. "Do you mind if I ask you how the House of Black is going to vote tomorrow?" Harry turned towards Sirius, wondering if he knew anything about this. Sirius shook his head and asked, "There's a Wizengamot vote tomorrow. The issue of Muggle-born rights," Greg explained. "I was just wondering if you knew or were willing to share which way the House of Black is going to vote." "I want to do it," Harry said to Sirius. "All right, we can do it," Sirius agreed and clarified. "We're on the side that thinks Muggle-borns should have rights, aren't we?" "If you are," Greg butted in, "then you're probably against the issue they're calling Muggle-born rights this time." "Why?" Harry asked curiously. "This steaming pile of legislation supposedly empowers Muggle-borns over their Muggle relatives, but it also empowers the Ministry over their Muggle relatives." "Or," Sirius grumbled, hearing the explanation and noticing Harry was listening intently. "Learning, politics, getting weaker." Harry frowned at Sirius and asked Greg, "What do you mean empowers over? You should research the issue if you're going to vote on it tomorrow." "Yes," Harry agreed, enjoying the frown on Sirius's face. "We definitely should. This is your fault," Sirius warned, leaning towards Greg. "I may forget a face or two, but I never forget a name, Greg Olson." Harry corrected. "Greg," Sirius continued without blinking. Greg fidgeted under Sirius's angry stare. "Let's get an appointment scheduled for you to get your flow reconnected." "Can't you just turn it back on from here?" Sirius complained. "Do you really need to come to our fireplaces?" "Yes, we could," Greg nodded. "But we don't do that anymore." "Why not?" Harry asked curiously. "It's policy." "But why?" "It's policy, sir. That's not a reason, Sirius argued. Harry held up a hand, stopping Greg from responding. Let's set up the appointment. Greg looked down at the calendar on the front desk. Looks like we have some time tomorrow. We've now got the Wizengamot vote tomorrow, Harry said. How about the day after? Greg was shaking his head and making quiet clicking sounds. Sorry, no open dates the day after. Nor the next day, nor the next. Greg was flipping the pages of the calendar quickly, just shaking his head. Here we go. Our next open appointment is August 18th. August 18th? Yes, sir. Tell you what, Harry Sirius volunteered. I'll stay home and handle the installation while you do the research and homework stuff, Greg assigned. Greg cleared his throat and added, for what it's worth, if you both wish to be able to augment your flu connections, then you'll both need to be present for the installation. Guess we won't be able to get in and vote this time, Sirius said, patting Harry on the back. We'll do lots of fun research next time. Don't worry. August 18th really is the next earliest we can do this. Yes, sir, Greg answered. But if I may point something out, Harry nodded that Greg should continue. We only do appointments during normal business hours, and the Wizengamot vote is an evening session. They won't overlap. Harry beamed a smile at Sirius. Sirius was half growling. Your name is quickly moving up my list, Craig. Greg, Harry supplied again. Greg, Sirius corrected. Greg was beginning to wonder if Sirius was getting his name wrong purposefully. So the appointment tomorrow, should I put you down for 8 to noon or 1 to 5? 1 to 5, Sirius answered immediately, while Harry responded, 8 to noon. The two Lord Blacks turned to each other and began to have a silent battle of wills. I'm sorry, Greg interrupted them. You misunderstood me. The appointment times have to be flexible. I was asking if I should put you down for tomorrow. Yes or no? The appointment tomorrow is for 8 to noon or 1 to 5. Sirius frowned. That's just cruel. That's our policy, sir, Greg answered happily. We'll take the appointment tomorrow, Harry said, glancing at his watch. He looked at Sirius and said, It's 1:15. You want to go bug Mooney at work. We're going to need his help setting up some of our new toys. Sirius nodded. I probably owe him a dinner or two, and now I can afford it. Harry turned towards Greg and asked, Do we pay you now or when it gets turned on? You have to pay at least your past due charges now, Greg assured them, finishing the paperwork. And if you want it set up as joint custody, you both need to sign here and here. They signed the paperwork, while Sirius was obviously fretting over ways their new necklaces and joint custody could easily be misconstrued. Harry and Sirius walked back to the apparition point in the ministry. Sirius knew the way to Remus's office and apparated away with Harry following on his trail. Sirius led him out of the tube station and down the street a half-block. They entered an office building and walked up to a suite on the second floor. Is Mr. Lupin in his office? The woman at the front desk just nodded without pausing in her phone conversation. Sirius waved Harry to follow him and led him back through a small cubicle farm. He reached an office that said Remus J. Lupin across the door. Sirius glanced at Harry and urged, Do me a favor and close the door behind you. Sirius grabbed the handle to Remus's office and whipped it open, shouting out loud, Scotland Yard, get your hands up and face the wall. Remus looked up suddenly. What are you? I said face the wall. Oh, God! Sirius grabbed a hold of Remus and spun him around before shoving him hard into the wall and rattling a framed poster of a kitten. Harry looked both ways and saw almost everyone was looking towards Remus's office. He let no emotion show on his face as he stared them all down before sharply closing the door with him in the office. Damn it, Sirius, Remus grumbled, easily breaking free from his grip. I'm trying to work here. Harry peered at the computer screen. That's a card game. I didn't say I was succeeding at working, just trying to, Remus haughtily retorted. And what would your bosses have to say about this? Remus plopped back into his chair. Who knows? They might give me another promotion. They gave you one already, Harry inquired. I thought you didn't know much about computers. Remus nodded. A couple months ago, there was a free seminar on our products for any employee who wished to take it. Everyone in my department wanted to go, including me, but the seminar was during the full moon, so I couldn't. When I got back to work on Thursday, I discovered everyone else knew a lot more than about computers. And apparently for that reason, they promoted me to senior consultant. Because you know less than the others, Sirius clarified. Remus shrugged. I don't understand muggles any more than I understand wizards. Sirius glanced at Harry and back at Remus. You ready to sneak out of here? Remus paused to consider the question while closing his computer game windows. He hopped up and opened his office door to address his gossip-loving colleague. "I'm not in any trouble. These were just a couple of my friends playing around. Julie, is McAllister here?" Julie looked up from her desk. "Is McAllister ever here? What about Maddox? She went home over an hour ago." "All right, thanks," Remus said, closing the door to his office again. He pulled on the cord that shut his blinds. "You've got something fun for us to do. We need your help on a little project," Harry explained. Sirius added, "And I want to buy you dinner." "You buy?" Remus asked in surprise. "Are you sure?" Sirius smirked. "Well, I'm a little buy. Curious?" "We came into a little money and need your help," Harry interjected. "Everybody wins." Remus nodded and waved the two men towards him away from the window in his office door. "We can just apparate out from here." Harry blinked, half expecting they would need to kidnap Remus to get him to skip out on work. "Wouldn't they notice you never left your office?" Remus shrugged. "I wouldn't be surprised if they think I'm just working late." Sirius tapped his chin. "You know, this whole work thing doesn't sound quite as bad as I'd expected. I prefer our new jobs," Harry argued with a smile at Sirius. "Hang on," Remus said, looking at the two grinning Lord Blacks. "You guys got jobs?" Sirius and Harry exchanged a glance just before they both apparated away. "Meet you back at Grimmauld Place." "That's no way," Remus repeated for the 6th time, shaking his head in amazement. "They were just going to throw this stuff away. Hard to believe, isn't it?" Sirius grinned. "This is a really nice robe," Remus said, enjoying the feel of acromantula silk. "I mean, really, really nice. Normally, I'd refuse your generosity, but I can see you stumbled across plenty of them." "I know!" Sirius cheered. "You guys must be the luckiest blokes in the world," Remus commented while he and Sirius were arranging where to put all the new electronics. Remus was explaining the various parts while Sirius just nodded and didn't even try to pay attention. "Damn it!" Harry swore as the ward stones flared up and died. "I'm still not doing this right. Are you following the instructions correctly?" Remus asked from behind a quickly growing mess of wires and cables. "Yes," Harry answered. "I'm doing the spell exactly the way the book says. But it's not working. Try your other wand," Sirius suggested with a shrug. Remus stuck his head out and glared at Sirius. "The wand he's using won't make any difference in the magic." "Hot damn," Harry cheered. "Sirius, I could kiss you right now if that didn't mean I'd be admitting you were right." Sirius smirked at Remus. "I told you." Remus just went back behind the TV and ignored Sirius. Since the spell was working, Harry cast sticking charms on the rest of the ward stones and affixed them to the 4 corners of the ceiling and the 4 corners of the floor. The 4 walls, the floor, and the ceiling all needed the spell cast on it, isolating this particular room off from the magic of the rest of the home. Remus came back around to the extra-long couch and had 3 different remotes in his hands. "We're ready whenever you are." Harry had just finished casting the spell for a 6th time and was inspecting where the magical boundaries met. "I think we're good." "Here goes nothing," Remus said, pointing the remote at giant television, while the 2 other Lord Blacks collapsed into the couch on either side of him. The screen flickered to life and had warning text stating, "Warming up." "No way," Remus cheered. "It works." He turned on the diva player and saw it light up. "No way!" Sirius glanced at how excited Remus was and commented, "This isn't exactly the stimulating sort of show I was looking for." The screen had finished warming up and was a royal blue, exclaiming it was looking for an input signal. "If there's a disc in the player, it should have just started up," Remus explained. He looked down at the first remote for the television and began to fiddle with the buttons. "Maybe I need to." Sirius shrieked as blaring loud music came from all directions around him. "All 3 men had their hands over their ears and yet continued to try and communicate. Is it supposed to be that loud?" Harry screamed over the noise. Remus shrugged, fiddling with more buttons. "I think so. Maybe a silencing charm," Sirius was mumbling as he took out his wand. "No!" Remus snapped, grabbing the wand from Sirius's hand. He chucked it out into the hallway. "Don't cast magic on the electronics. I'm pretty sure you can turn the volume down," Harry shouted over the orchestral song and movie's opening credits. "How?" Remus shouted back, showing the remote to Harry. Harry looked at it. "Perhaps the arrow buttons labeled volume." "Oh, right," Remus agreed and quickly lowered the volume to a far more acceptable level. "Sorry about that," chair, Sirius scolded, slapping Remus. "Excuse me," Remus said, when he saw Sirius hadn't even looked towards him. "I'm trying to watch this. I don't want to miss it, and you keep talking," Sirius explained, while clearly enraptured by the screen. Remus hit pause. "What? No!" Sirius snapped. "You broke it! Fix it! Mooney! Fix it!" "I paused it," Remus explained, and hit play followed by pause again. Sirius huffed and tried to grab the remote, but Remus pulled his hand away. Sirius whined. "Give me the wand! You don't know how to work it right. If you think it's a wand, then it's clearly not safe in your hands," Remus retorted. Remus let out a slightly feminine shriek when he felt pokes on both the left and right sides of his belly. He dropped the remote in reflex as an invisible hand grabbed it and pulled it away. "Why don't I hold the remote while you two children wrestle for it?" Harry said, keeping the remote up in the air and out of their reach. "You're on," Sirius agreed, grabbing a hold of Remus and taking him by surprise. "Padfoot, he wasn't being sincere. He was calling you childish," Remus complained, despite being held in a half Nelson. "That's the talk of a loser, if I ever heard one," Sirius grumbled, as Remus's werewolf strength quickly turned the tables on him. Harry just rolled his eyes and hit play on the remote. The two grown men who were wrestling on the floor stopped and just looked up at the giant screen. Neither had bothered to extricate themselves from the other's grip. They were both simply entranced at the wondrous technology of Muggles and the tale unfolding before their eyes. Harry was stifling his chuckles at the fact that Remus and Sirius were still holding each other and watching the movie. He summoned Sirius's camera and snapped a few shots when they gripped each other tightly in moments of fright and surprise. Before long, Harry also got caught up in the movie. "You guys here?" Tonk's voice came from the foyer. "Upstairs," Harry called back suddenly, realizing they'd been watching a movie for over 20 minutes. Remus and Sirius were still on the floor, neither even aware that Harry or Tonks had said anything. "Holy crap!" Tonks exclaimed at the sight of the giant telly. "Shh!" Remus and Sirius both shush. Harry hit pause on the movie. "No!" Sirius whined. "What are you doing?" Remus suddenly realized his predicament. "Padfoot, could you take your arm off my waist, please?" "It's stuck between two pillows. We don't have any—" "Gah," Sirius said, quickly pulling away. Tonks looked at Harry. "Do I want to know?" Harry smiled at Tonks. "I took pictures of the lovers' embrace on the floor." Sirius plopped himself back on the couch and yelped. "Hey! That's my new camera, you thief. You found a camera too?" Remus asked in surprise. "No way. Speaking of thieves," Tonks grinned. "Last night someone cleaned house at Parkinson Manor. Potter's been moaning about it all day." "Hum," Harry said without conviction. "Hum," Sirius echoed innocently. "I only mention because you just happened to find a camera around the same time someone stole a camera from the Parkinsons, along with the vast majority of their other earthly possessions," Tonks said, glancing at the massive Muggle home entertainment center. "It's curious timing. This stuff is probably all stolen," Remus suddenly realized. "I mean, the odds of you guys just finding all this stuff in one place the same night as a major robbery have to be astronomical. You did say you found it all in the same place, right?" "Hummy," Sirius said, before Harry poked him in the belly. "Poof! Yup!" Harry said with a wide smile. "Found all of it in the same place. Tonks saw the nice robe her adoptive father was wearing and smirked. And just what else did you find?" "Tons," Remus answered for them. They got a hole. He stopped and turned towards the two Lord Blacks who were inspecting their surroundings and whistling nonchalantly. "You didn't just find anything at all, did you?" "Doubt it," Tonks said through her snickers. "Unless you count finding things around Parkinson Manor." Sirius looked at Harry and asked, "How long are we supposed to act innocent?" Harry deflated and sighed. "Well, you can stop acting now. You guys stole from the Parkinsons," Remus yelled in outrage. "Yeah," Sirius answered with a firm nod. "Aren't you ashamed of yourselves?" Sirius looked at Harry and shook his head. "No, not really. It's not so much that we wanted to quote, unquote, steal from them, as it is that we wanted to remove some of the Death Eater's resources," Harry feebly explained. "And reallocate them to our pockets," Sirius added with a grin. "Why are your panties in such a twist, Mooney?" "I don't know," Remus said, still unable to keep his voice down. "But it's wrong. If we let things like rights and wrong get in the way, then the terrorists have already won." Sirius sagely argued. Harry got the distinct feeling Sirius wasn't the most skilled debater before turning to face Tonks. To be honest, I wasn't sure if they were even going to report it. Did they manage to dispel the calling card in the entryway? You guys took everything, Tonks added. They had to report it. And no, the floating dildo was still there when we arrived, which, by the way, was getting a lot of discussion on what to call it. I think the front-runner last I heard was the After Dark mark, though Rockwell was insisting that it should be called the Dirk mark for some reason. Personally, I think. Tonks, Remus interrupted. Right, Tonks said, as she realized a dildo discussion in front of her adopted father and the two-dimension traveling knuckleheads couldn't possibly end well. Anyways, they left it up for the investigators. The dome captured the one signature from the mark and it wasn't on file. Sirius frowned. Did you at least ask Baron Parkinson some uncomfortable questions? Tonks shook her head. It was away on business, or so we've been told. He left the missus to deal with the devil. Are you sure Parkinson is a Death Eater? Sirius asked. Harry nodded, as certain as I can be. Was this a gut feeling, or did you see the mark? Snakes can sense the serpent magic of the dark mark, Harry explained. Parkinson had it. It leaves a stain on the soul, a particularly poetic cobra told me once. That's a useful trick, Tonks said with a low whistle, detecting the dark mark. I can't detect it, Harry clarified. I'm just one of the few people in the world who can talk to the ones who can detect it. And before you even ask, you don't have to worry. We're not going to be reallocating from anyone until after we've confirmed they're branded Voldemort cattle. Wait, Remus jumped in. You're going to do this again. We finally get new jobs and you're trying to get me to quit, Sirius said, shaking his head. Moony, I'm disappointed in you. It's not a job, it's a crime, Remus said, looking over at Tonks. And come to think of it, you've implicitly made us all accomplices, including a respected aura. That's a good point, boys, Tonks jumped in. I can't just turn my head the other way. Certainly not when the old guy here gets himself such a fine silk robe, and I've got nothing to wear to help you celebrate your new jobs. Well, we're going to have to do something about that, Sirius grinned back as Remus' head dropped in disappointment. Come with me, or Tonks. Lupin, Harry said, swinging an arm over her shoulder. I think we can locate a wardrobe or two in your size, or maybe some jewelry that befits a member of the Black family. Now we're talking, Tonks agreed. Harry gave her a playful squeeze of the bum, adding, who knows, we may even figure out a way to celebrate where having nothing to wear is the appropriate attire. Remus sighed as Tonks and Harry walked away. We were good people before we met you two. Honest, hard-working, magical citizens. Sirius slung an arm over Moony's shoulder, imitating Harry's earlier action. Maybe, but you weren't having this much fun either. True, Remus admitted with a smile. And why do you even care so much about us thieving from the folks you'd openly consider the enemy? Remus smirked. I don't care, but someone needs to disagree with you too before you try to overthrow the government. Why don't you show me how to make the thing louder with this muggle wand? Remus grinned. You want to watch the rest of the movie? Sirius nodded. That, and I figured you'd want to make sure to drown out any noise coming from Harry's room. Right about now. Okay, that's it, Remus insisted. You really need to learn a thing or two about fathers and their daughters. Sirius could always tell when Remus was ripe for riling up. Well, I think your daughter may be the one learning a thing or two. Remus clenched his eyes shut. It's about common courtesy and basic propriety. Things you just don't say to certain people, even when they're obvious. You know, we picked up a whole lot of really old, musty-smelling books, Sirius teased when he saw Remus' eyes light up. I only mention it because there's a chance that right now Harry and Tonks are having sex. Remus growled softly. At this very moment his penis could be in her. Give me the muggle wand and shut up, Remus snapped, figuring if he couldn't beat him, he should join him. And make sure to beat him later, much harder with a big stick.